Good morning. This is the Blaine's World, a video podcast that can be heard each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and get more information about past shows and upcoming shows at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Dawn Westmoreland. And Dawn, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay, that is Dawn. And Dawn is this amazing woman, as you'll see, who's also syndicated a radio host on WPVM FM, and she supports safe and respectful work environments through her writing, speaking, coaching, and HR consulting. She's honorably retired from the U.S. Air Force and keeps all veterans in her heart, volunteering her time and helping them throughout the area. And so, with that in mind, Dawn, the question I always ask guests the first time, even though you and I have spoken several times before, but again, remind me, as a kid, you grew up where?
Where did I grow up? Oh my goodness, Fort Lauderdale till I was 7 years old, Blaine. And then I moved up to this very country rural place called Interlochen, Florida, which is an hour below Jacksonville, very country with one stoplight. And we had red clay roads, and we really did walk a half a mile to school.
Okay. And you also, when you're walking that half mile, it was probably even tougher in the snow. It must have been really tough in Florida with all that snow you had. So you had a tough childhood. When you were a kid growing up, did you always know you wanted to be this speaker, writer, um, expert in HR issues? Was that your goal as a kid?
Blaine, not in 1,000 million years. I was the shyest kid probably in the United
Really?
States.
Wow.
I was shy, and my friends who still follow me on social media would back that up in a second.
So what happened? So you went to school, and what brought about the change?
Well, to be straightforward, it's the second poorest county in Florida. There wasn't a lot of opportunities, and I wanted to travel and I wanted to get a great education, and that's what prompted me to join the Air Force. And I spent 20 years in the Air Force and retired about 20 years ago.
So how old were you when you joined the Air Force?
I was 20.
Okay,
I'd already
so
had a little college under my belt, and I was making minimum wage, driving a junky old brown Plymouth dark car. I wanted more to life than that.
so that was kind of like your real first time full-time job, working in the service. What were you in the service for? What were you being
What kind of
trained
work did
for?
I do, Blaine?
Yeah,
I've always been, into the human part of, people. I love people, even though I've always been more of an introvert. And I would now call myself an ambivert, right in the middle,
I
not
love
shy
it. All right.
anymore. I wanted to help people. I grew up with humanitarian family. I watched my stepfather, watched my dad and my mom do really incredible acts. I could go on and on. That would be another show. And that's what I learned. I saw the compassion and I wanted to get out there and help people. And, when you work in HR, and it's very different in the Air Force, I mean, you're taking care of some very serious situations, like, when you're overseas and somebody's family dies, and you're jumping in, helping. I was also a first sergeant, acting first sergeant, and always helping, as an enlisted leader position, always helping people.
So is that what you did in the military? You were like in HR kinds of stuff?
Yes, and I was an Air Force recruiter in the Black Hills of South Dakota. The only female recruiter, it's kind of funny, Blaine, the only female recruiter that was allowed out on the field. And what I mean by that is that I didn't sit in a mall or an office. I covered half the state of South Dakota, a lot of windshield time.
It sounds it, yeah. So that's kind of interesting. It ties in, what's ironic about that, it ties into a lot of what you're doing now. So I begin to see how you became who you are now. And let's talk about that process because, again, you got out of the Air Force. When did you get out of the Air Force?
Oh my gosh,
About.
it's hard to believe. Valentine's Day,
Okay,
20 years ago.
20 years
Got
ago.
a lot of vacation time built up, and it was a sweet deal retiring.
So you retired, but you were still kind of young at the point in time when you retired. What did you then decide you wanted to do when you grew up?
Oh, your questions are wonderful. I'm so happy to be on your show too, Blaine. I got out and immediately, I didn't even wait a month or two, and I got a horticulture degree, which is one of the four degrees I have. I know I'm a nerd. I admit it, Blaine. I love it. So I got a horticulture degree, did really well in it. But in 2008, 2009, what happened? The economy crashed
Right.
and people, they couldn't afford landscape designers and such. So I went back and got back into HR again.
And so it's funny you mentioned horticulture because I remember I wanted to have you a guest on a show talk about that maybe down the road, because I know you were, which was very impressive. We were speaking about that topic, you were lecturing about that topic as well. So you decided you weren't going to be a full-time horticulturist or whatever they call them, 2008, 2009. And it's funny, you and I met shortly thereafter that, I guess. But what then gave you the impetus to change career directions again?
I really wanted to stay in horticulture. No joke. I loved it. I made good money, but when people are holding on to their money, so I had to make a decision, and I had a master's in human resources. I had at that time, gosh, I think over 20 years of HR experience, and I had the opportunity to jump back in, and I jumped back into the federal government and spent maybe about 5 years, and then decided to work for myself in HR and expand, what I do.
And when you work with the federal government, what was your position? What were you doing?
Well, HR, and then, I actually stepped out of it for a little bit and worked kind of in a financial type of job, customer service type of job. Then I missed the HR because, I don't want to work with numbers and stats. I mean, I want to work with people. I want to, even good times, hard times. I mean, I enjoy supporting people, helping them very
And so
much.
one of the cool things about you, one of the things I admire about you is that you always seems like trying different things. So I had known a little bit about the horticulture. I know you're speaking on that as well. But I know when you're getting into HR, which is kind of neat when you think about it, you also decided around, I guess, about that time to write your first book. Okay. And when did you write your first book?
Oh my gosh. I think it was over 10 years ago. And I wrote my first book, and then I wrote a second workbook. That was probably about 5, 6 years ago. And I've even started a memoir. I just need to finish the last chapter of it.
Well, and talk about since you mentioned it, I don't know if you have it in front of you. Do you have that workbook in front of you? Can we get it? And so, okay, that's the one I'm familiar with, and certainly I read that. And the title of it is what again, Dawn?
Well, I think it's hard showing on the screen,
Yeah,
but
you
it's
can't say
called
it.
Stand Up to Workplace Bullying and Discrimination. And I wrote the book because I'd had to stand up to some injustice. And, sometimes people just experience that. And then I was very successful. It was a messy middle. We don't have to get into it. And people started approaching me. One of the creators of Homeland Security approached me because he heard about me, and I had lunch with him a couple times. And then I want to say about 6, 7 years ago, I went to a conference where Erin Brockovich was doing a leadership summit for women, and I met her, told her about my background, and uh, got to know her better. And she was telling me about her 3 children. Two children of her children had spent time in the Army, and she wanted to get to know me. And what resulted out of that was so fantastic. I got to interview her.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you interviewed her. Were you doing a podcast at the time, or what was the context of the
Yes.
interview?
Yes, it was a podcast. It was before a radio talk host. Yes, and she was incredible because she talked about 2 women that got together and figured out how to, get the lead or the toxic water corrected. It was a simple thing. And she explained how everyday people can come together, be resilient, but simple practical advice of working together. And it's a real simple interview, but it's very powerful.
Okay, and since you mentioned the word, it sort of segues into something else you've become I'd say an expert on the topic of resiliency. And that's how I've gotten to know you through some of the things you've gone through in your life. And when you're talking about resiliency, what exactly are you talking about?
Oh my gosh, in 2026, I will be a keynote speaker on resilience. And Blaine, you know this, there's a million ways you can be resilient. It could be natural disasters, it could be surviving bad health. I think what appeals to me most is social justice. I don't like to see people being mistreated. And it happens. I mean, it's life. It happens. There's all kind of people out there. So what I like to do is inspire people and show them how they can be powerful, because personal power is something we all have within us. And if we focus on negative, we're going to get more of that. So I say, let's focus on, being more resilient, how to stand up for ourselves when we need to. And what's got me so far in life, oh gosh, I had an autoimmune disorder, a really deadly one for 19 years. And I know without thinking about it that forgiving, letting go, moving on, staying positive, boom, I've been in remission a year and a half.
Okay, I don't know if I
But I
heard.
can't help but wonder if that, was the mindset,
Well, it's funny because, and to your credit, I don't think I ever heard that story about you. I know lots about you, but that you just, I guess, dealt with it. And we'll talk about that process. And like I said, you're looking good now. It's sounding good. Are you feeling good now too?
I am feeling good. I have a lot on my plate right now. I have a mom that is dealing with a chronic health issue, and I've been her caregiver for a while and trying to move ahead with my work.
And that's incredible that I can't believe you were doing that for so long, where you were going back and forth, was every 6 months, or not every 6 months, every couple months to Florida, back
Yes,
and forth. And that must have been quite an experience. I guess it's good, at least, hopefully from mom's standpoint. She's now at least being taken care of. She's in a
she's in
facility
a
right
nur
now.
yeah, she's in a nursing home, and you know, I'm just amazed. The nurses there are just incredible. They're so calm and competent. And when I hear that men just can't be nurturers or they just don't get it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so incorrect. You need to meet my mother's male nurses. Of course, she has female nurses that are fantastic too, but I just amazed at how calm they stay because they deal with really hard issues.
And all the time. And again, I think that's one of the things you're so good at doing with dealing with these, like I said, these hard issues. But what I really wanted to focus in on are some of your ideas on dealing with some of these issues, and terms we'll call it resiliency, and maybe that'll be the second book down the road. So the next book is going to be your memoir you said you're working on. And after that, I'm going to encourage you to write a book specifically on resiliency. I think that's your next book because I think there's a real market for it. And is that something that people can develop resiliency, or is it something you're born with?
Ooh, gosh, people ask me all the time, Blaine, how am I so resilient? I mean, I've always been straightforward. I've had to see counselors, and I think that's very important to have a professional to work with when you're dealing with really, really heavy stuff. And, I've been told that this is pretty deep, okay? That most people would harm themselves or commit suicide, some of the things that I've been through, and I'm just shocked. And I'm like, wow, what makes me different? And I really had to think about it because I wasn't born strong or resilient. I went through a lot of hard times as a child. And can you imagine leaving Fort Lauderdale, Florida? You're a city girl, and then you go to a place where it's so country and you don't fit in. And then I went in the Air Force and, had to learn to toughen up. And I don't mean toughen up like, be a warrior or mean, but I had to learn to be assertive. And I learned a lot about being more resilient, especially in the Air Force. Oh my gosh, I had so many opportunities to step in roles that, wouldn't have followed as a leader. And I had one of the best mentors really toward the end of my career. I wish I had him at the beginning.
By the way, is that person still around?
It would be Chief Kelly. Chief
But
Kelly. I think he's still in San. well, wait a minute. Would he be Oklahoma City, San Antonio? I've moved around so much. I think he's still around. When I talked to a mutual coworker, it was in the Air Force. He was a fantastic, fantastic person. I have to tell you, he was a little short black man, and you can only stay in the Air Force 30 years enlisted. He was the E9 Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force. It takes going to Congress approval to stay in past 30 years. Now that was back over 20 years ago. I don't know what the rules are today or the laws. He stayed an extra year. He was that powerful. I love this man. Oh my God, I could just go on, and he brought
Well,
the best out of me.
well, I love hearing those kind of stories. And so, Kelly, if you're listening, please let's get a copy of this to him because we want to hear that you were on this podcast. And thank you for being an inspiration behind a lot of what the ones don't do. And keep that in mind. So when we write the third book, the book about resiliency, you can keep in mind maybe we'll dedicate it to him. That would be a lovely way to remember
Ooh.
him because that's you keep in mind that you still remember him and let's send him a copy of this. So let's now talk about resiliency. So you learned over your career, professional in the Air Force and out of the Air Force, how to become more resilient. And so back to the question I asked you. So is it possible people come to you, and I guess they never thought much about it, but it's possible to develop resiliency skills, I guess you would call them. And specifically, Dawn, if I can put you on the spot, let's talk about some of the things that you need to do if you want to become more resilient. And I guess it could apply to jobs, but it could apply to personal life. It could apply to lots of different situations as well. What are the things folks have to do to become more resilient?
Oh goodness. I could go on and on and on, but I'll give you 10 steps, and I'll make them really short, like Reader Digest type that I came up with. And there's definitely more, but some of the things that I've come up with, Blaine, is, wherever you're at, whatever you're going through, whether you're going through a divorce, somebody's betrayed you, you're dealing with an insurance company that doesn't want to pay, it don't matter. We all know what, challenging times are. But, one thing, these are my tips. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a doctor. This is what's worked for me. Allow yourself to feel what you feel. You got to process those feelings, and if you stuff it down, you'll probably come out with you ain't going to the doctor with health issues. So I do that in a healthy way. I mean, I've actually just gone in a room and just I mean, just let out the feelings and felt it, and then I let it go because I'm trained as a life coach. I went to IPEC back in 2014. I'm certified. And first thing you do is you work on yourself and your mindset, and you cannot be a victim. If you do, you're gonna go south. You're not gonna go far. Another thing I like to do,
Wait,
like,
Bill, let me just back you up. So on that first
sure.
one, your opinion, if you would, good or bad idea to also then open up to somebody else, meaning how you feel. I love the scream idea. You can scream at the top of your lungs, but is this something you should share with your spouse, significant others, friends, relatives? Is it something that you should involve other people?
Yes, you should. And I tell people, listen, I grew up with seven brothers and stepbrothers. I was in Air Force with a bunch of men. I had to learn, to be assertive and tough. But we all have a breaking point. We all do. I guarantee it. We all have a breaking point. So yeah, it's very important. If you need professional help, reach out. If it's an attorney, if it's somebody in the mental health, but you make sure you get a credible person. It is a big deal. And then, you and I both share a wonderful friend. He's an actor, solo actor, and he's played in great movies like Die Hard. Ronald Rand been, he's just been a great, I'd say, mentor, because I'm always learning too. He's been a great friend. He's positive, and he always encourages me to keep moving forward, and he's there for me. My friend Barb McKenzie, she has a PhD in human behavior. She is always there for me. And I have a friend named Martha who's been like a mentor to me, Martha Juknowski, that, people that just support me. They're positive. They help, some of them help me be the best version of myself. They're not telling me how to feel or what to be or how to be or what to do. They're just supporting me, and it's wonderful.
I love how you
And
said
everybody
that.
needs that.
But I love how you said that, and that's a great message to share with people about becoming the best person you can be, I guess, kind of thing. It almost sounds like a military line, I forgot with service, right? Become the best you can be. But let's move along. Let's talk about then each of the 10 if we have time. A second principle you talk about is separating your identity from the outcome. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, for example, if something doesn't work out the way you do, you are still capable, worthy, and strong. I mean, it doesn't change your character, your courage, or your integrity. I mean, whatever happens doesn't mean that you're a failure. You can learn a lot. You can, I mean, my mom with her health issues, I've learned a lot about compassion and grace, for example. Not always happy, that her health has, gotten so bad. But my mom's almost 85 and she's beat cancer, she's had diabetes, and just to be able to separate yourself from the outcome is very powerful, Blaine.
And I love having the opportunity a couple months ago to meet your mom. What I enjoyed about this, and she was going through lots of stuff at the time, but she still had a great smile, and what was or so much enjoyed it was she seemed to be having a good time, even though she's going through a lot of crap, she still had that smile and she seemed to enjoy herself, you know.
That's my mom. People will tell you she's a light. She's a true humanitarian who's helped so many people.
Talk about doing, I'll kind of call them out by numbers as we go through. You have a great line too. You talk about the need to reflect, what do you call it? Not ruminate.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
You know, every experience I've learned, and I had to learn this, Blaine. It didn't come overnight. I've been trained and I learned how to reframe things. I look at the experience. What did I get out of it? What did I learn? Because I do believe that, like I just mentioned, grace. I got grace. I'm getting grace right now. 2 days ago, my mom was able to communicate with me better, and it was beautiful. So I've learned grace. What is still within me, the power to change, what are these experiences, teaching me? It's taught me to be more resilient. It's taught me to be more assertive when needed. It's taught me boundaries. It's taught me so much.
You also talk about doing the idea of reclaiming what do you call it? A sense of control. What do you mean by that?
Oh gosh. Before I knew better and I had the tools and the knowledge and the training, I used to feel like a victim. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened to me. Whatever it was, it could have been somebody hitting my car and and not leaving a note. I'm just making that up as an example. It's, it's owning your story, Blaine, not letting your story own you. Get out there, get control. Don't let your brain tell you, put you into fear mode or feed the fear consciousness. You can own your story. I mean, we always have options and solutions no matter what to help us,
You
and
say that,
resources.
and you've gone through a lot of stuff yourself. Easier said than done, though, in terms
Oh
of,
yeah.
um, you know, especially I guess when you've been treated unfairly or been discriminated against or whatnot, to be able to get beyond that, I guess that's part of what resiliency is all about, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we can struggle. We might have to sit through some pain, but we can move through it. And what I always like to say, which is really the next tip, is, if somebody came to me and they're telling me they've had a bad day, somebody's mistreated, I always ask them, I listen to them, what is the most empowering thing that you can do at this time? And a lot of people, they're like, wow, yeah, you're in control. What's the next step? I mean, do you need to reach out and get some help? Do you need to pay somebody for a consultation to get help on something? That's just an example.
I love how you say that because it reminds me of Oprah used to have very similar to what you just said. Her question was just ask this question, what's next? You know, that,
Yeah.
rather than bitch and moan all the time, that doesn't get you very far. Or you said it even better, what's the next step? What can we do from where we are today to do something different tomorrow rather than dwell, I guess, on the same old every day.
Yes, and I have to keep my mouth shut, Blaine, because I'm a fixer and I want to jump in and rescue people, but
Right.
that's doing them a disservice because they really do know I mean, we have so much personal power in us, and sometimes we have to be reminded how powerful we are.
And it's so funny you say that because yeah, I consider myself the same thing too. And it's such an easy thing for me to do, give other people advice, but that's not what's always needed, and you're going to tell me, I'm sure, or we can talk about it together, is better if the person determines that himself or herself, as opposed to somebody else telling them, what to do, so. And I guess I'll ask you that point. Do we all have it within us to determine the next best step? How do we know what's in that plan or what should be in that plan?
Well, I mean, I'm not a medical expert or mental health expert. If somebody is just so overwhelmed, distraught, they may need to have family or friend intervention to step in and to support them. But if somebody is capable, has the mental capabilities, and you can just walk them through, asking them open-ended question. Like I said, what's the most empowering thing? And they start thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe I need to call my mother because I'm just making this up, for example, and initiate trying to make peace with her, for example. Because, today I heard while I was out shopping, somebody tell me about how bad their mother was to them. I'm like, oh, okay, let's what could you do to improve that?
And it's funny you said that because that ties into another of your recommendations, and that's in what can you do to improve or strengthen that support system you have. Now let's talk a little bit about that. So you mentioned somebody may have had tough childhood with the mother. You can always complain and groan about it, but it's better to do something. I guess what I'm hearing you say, it's better to do something about it rather than complain about it. And so
Mhm.
how can one go about strengthening their own support system? How do you do that?
Okay, well, there's many avenues and resiliency. There's so many examples of resiliency, Um, you can talk to supportive family and friends, therapy, counseling, uh, it might be your rabbi, your pastor, a spiritual person that, it could be your next door neighbor. Some of the best people have been with my mom, CNAs to talk to. I mean, because they really know what's going on because they see my mom so much. If it's a legal matter, get out there and get the legal support. There's subscriptions out there for legal service. I belong to one. It doesn't cost much. And you may need, financial guidance. Like, I'll bring up a good example. Our friend Ronald Rand, he lost most everything from Hurricane Helene when it happened. He had all kinds of paperwork and, plays and all kinds of newspapers, and he lost it because of the hurricane flood. I think he lost like 90% of his things, and and he asked for help, and people did. And I'm not making fun of when I say flooded. They did flood him with support in a good way. Financial support helped him get back on his feet, losing almost everything.
And when you get at that point in time, talk also, Dawn, about your own need for self, I guess you call it self-compassion. That
Mhm.
so you're seeking help, but what do you mean by talking about seeking self-compassion or doing that?
Yeah, it's easy. It is so easy. And I notice it mostly in women, okay, that they just beat themselves up like they think they could have done better, or, you know, if they felt they were taken advantage of, they feel bad and they beat themselves up. And the thing is, we can't say I should have known better or I failed. We can replace it. I did the best I could with the knowledge I had or the resources and tools. um, for example, you can say, I'm disappointed in the outcome of whatever it is, but you're not going to let it ruin your life or define you. And just a good affirmation, I will recover and I will rebuild. and the sun's going to rise again.
And it's funny you said that because it ties into one of your other recommendations. And I love how you expressed it there, reframing the narrative. So you've gone through a lot of stuff. Give an example of framing the narrative.
Ooh, wow, there's so many examples of reframing. You know, I've been tired more than usual because I have a lot on my plate and it's been for
Sure.
years. And so if I got up every day and I told myself or other people, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, my brain's believing it. Yes, I am tired. But if I tell myself today, I am going to I'm going to feel good. I set the intention, I'm going to feel good. I start out with, I love coffee. I like meditation music. I start my day out putting myself in the right frame. Uh, if if I feel myself feeling like a victim, because you know what, Blaine, I'm human and I make mistakes too, I catch it faster. Nope, nope, we're not going there. We're not going down that nasty rabbit hole. I get to change, rewrite, rethink what my story is. And my story can be whatever it wants to be. And I choose to be resilient, happy, and I want that for other people too.
And it ties in also to, as we're talking, I'm getting the sense that these are all great ideas. Some easier said than done. It's
Oh,
easy
yes.
to do that. But again, I don't know how you do it, but you've done it very well in your life when you've gone through stuff and everybody's gone through stuff, but you've
Right.
given it a meaning or a positive meaning, almost part of that reframing stuff. That if you've gone through tough times, better to, I guess, learn from them or grow from them if possible, rather than just talk about how tough it is. You know,
Yes.
so for example, when you talk about giving an experience meaning, you lose a job, you get fired unfairly, whatever. How
Hmm.
can you give that meaning?
Well, I'll give you a good example. I've helped, a lot of women over the years. It tends to be mostly women, and they've reached out to me and they've been fired or let off, and they tell me their story. And I'm not an employment attorney; I'm an HR person. But from an HR HR point of view, when they tell me certain things, I'm like, okay, I don't know, but by the definition, this could fall under discrimination, and they get fired. I'm like, I'll sit there and I'll give them some meaning. I said, this sucks, and I'll help them on an HR level, with the work I do, supporting them, documenting things, send them to employment attorneys I trust and such. But I also will remind them sometimes those ugly things are a blessing. Leave, if the job is toxic and you leave it, there's nothing weak about that.
And I love it because that's purpose back to your book. Your book talks about a lot of this stuff too, what to do in situations and how to deal with it. I think it's so useful information if you're going through this stuff, go through Dawn's workbook. And by the way, just you can't really see it too well, but if you would mention it again, and then how do people get a copy of that if they want?
Thank you so much, Blaine. My book is Stand Up to Workplace Bullying and Discrimination. It's on Amazon, but it's also out there in 400 other areas too. I think it's called Ingram Spark, where you can order it anywhere. Yeah, it's on Amazon. So you can get it by Kindle or hard copy, as we would call that in the Air Force.
Good information. And lastly, I don't want to tie you up all night here, Dawn, but let me ask you a final question. And that's where, say, the 10th thing in terms of being resilient is the need to build new strength-based habits. And give me an example of some of those strength-based habits.
Oh, goodness. And I mentioned them earlier, Blaine. I start out my day with
Okay.
mindfulness,
Yeah.
meditation. There is a ton of great meditation music that's out there on YouTube. It's free, except for you got to have the internet. It's important. And this is my hardest thing right now, having so much on my plate, is getting out there, moving your body, walking, exercising, dancing, whatever. I'm very good at this daily gratitude. Some people write it down, they feel it anchors it in. When I'm in, about to go to slumber, land, I'm like thanking my creator my creator, I'm like, thank you for this day. I mean, the little wins and even the things that didn't seem so good. It's part of, it's just part of life. And it's also making me a better person. So, and I do have a structured routine. I have to, if it was chaos, I would never get so much done. As I mentioned, I have some fantastic people out there. You are one of them, Blaine. You're the best. You're the best at community leadership, marketing. You've given me great advice over the years, and I thank you for that. And keeping in mind, little wins, no matter what it is, maybe somebody does a little extra. In fact, I just, gosh, I'm going to say it, Legal Shield. Um,
Sure.
Customer service at the corporate was blew my mind in a good way. They went so way out of their way to help me tonight, this afternoon. I said, "How can I get a hold of your supervisor? Tell him how great you are." And that's it felt so good to say this lady, her name was Tasha, all the things she did that was above and beyond.
Wow.
And then, you got to manage your stress because it could sneak up on you in a heartbeat. You can tell because your voice changes, you start feeling stressed, things trigger you. And I would say this, I've learned as a life coach over the years, those triggers, the things that upset you can also be a gift. It reminds you that you have something that's still bothering you that you might want to work on to mitigate or heal or whatever you want to call it. So as I say, these habits provide emotional armor for our future.
Can I give you an assignment?
Yeah,
Wearing
going to.
wearing my old teaching hat. But I'm very impressed with the story you just mentioned about this woman at Legal Shield. At your convenience, give me a short write-up, and we'll give her a Blanchard Best Award. You know, um,
Oh, I
so
love that.
yeah, I really would because again, you and I agree. It's just I love being able to recognize positive stuff or positive stories. And so I'll give you a compliment too that one of the other things you do on there so much admire is as best you can, you try to surround yourself with beauty and having to do whenever I see all the flowers you grow and all, flowers you share with other people, it's just so they're beautiful, and you share them both on the internet and you give out flowers as well. What a positive thing to do, to get, I guess, get beyond yourself and just do it, for the beauty of what you're doing. But just love it when you not only take grow the flowers, but you photograph them and you give them away and whatnot. But just that's a really great way, I think, of building a strength you have and sharing it with other people, you know.
Thank you so much.
No, and the other compliment, and I think you're doing such a super job on this as well, is you also host a podcast. It's not only been on WPVM, but it's now gone, nationwide actually. And so that's just really a cool thing to share your gift with others. So I want to thank you for doing that. It's just
Thank you. I mean, it's an honor to have a syndicated radio
yeah.
show and be a talk host. It's an honor. It
Who
really
would have
is.
thunk when you were a little kid and growing up as a kid that you'd have this show and you've interviewing all these people. To wrap up, if folks want to get in touch with you or follow you, and I encourage people to do so, I know, for example, you're very active on LinkedIn. And
Yes,
I look forward to reading your posts on LinkedIn because not only do you talk about all the cool people you interview and invite people to listen to them, but you're doing a great job in writing up them and telling what they're talking about. So how do people follow you on LinkedIn or elsewhere?
I appreciate that very, very much. And a lot of that marketing I learned from you, Blaine. Thank you very much. So you can, if you go to LinkedIn and I'm active there, I have my whole name, Dawn Marie Westmoreland. And I jokingly tell people if you don't know how to spell Westmoreland, it's going west for more land.
Right.
Also, somebody already has dawnwestmoreland.com. So they're a beautician out in Oklahoma. Good for them. But if you go to dawnmariewestmoreland.com, that's my speakers page. And I'll have a speakers reel on it here in early 2026.
Okay. And you're also on, I guess, Facebook as well. People want to
Yes,
follow
I
you through
am.
there. And are you on
Yeah, Dawn
Instagram?
Marie Westmoreland. I
Oh,
stand out because I have my whole name.
okay. And lastly, are you on Instagram?
Yes, I am on Instagram.
So the point is, and I encourage people to do so. If you want to follow Dawn Westmoreland, I love that's a great way, Westmoreland. Um, Check her out on social media because you'll find you can look at it. You look on the website or internet, you'll find her as well. And she's constantly is coming out with good stuff. Also, you'll find out about her upcoming speaking engagements as well. It's the best way to follow you on social media. And I'd like to thank you, Dawn, for all the good stuff you're doing. Look forward to also now your second book, and then we talk about your third book as well in your spare time. You can find stuff, do all that. And so thanks for joining me tonight. Also, thanks to Cappy Tassetti, my producer. And hopefully we'll actually bump into each other sometime in not too distant future, doing that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much and happy Hanukkah,
And,
Blaine.
and Merry Christmas. You too, doing. Be well.
You will.